Hello and welcome everybody to our last webinar of this year. Today we will speak about bridging the gaps in SharePoint with WorkPoint 365. I'm very happy to see you all here and I hope you will enjoy the webinar and learn, of course, a few things. Today I'm working also at home, so last time just Dom were at home, this time me as well, so I hope everything worked like before. My name is Florian Neuhold and I will guide you through this webinar and I hope you will have a lot of fun. So today the topic, again, I'm very happy to have our very own CPO Dominick Cosgrove in the webinar. First of all, very important for us is if you have any questions, do not hesitate to put them into the Q&A. I promise you I will take care of it. And after the webinar, we will have a few moments to answer these questions, or Dom will answer these questions. And yeah, we're looking forward to answer these questions, of course. So I hope Dom is ready and hope you are prepared, of course. So you are online, Dom, and you can start with introduce yourself maybe a little bit.
Yes. So hi everyone. For those that haven't met me before, I'm Dominick Cosgrove. I'm CPO at WorkPoint, and I'm delighted to be presenting this topic to you today. I will start showing my screen. So hopefully, Florian, you'll be able to...
I sent direct live, so it's now everybody can see it.
Perfect, and you can hear me, okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So we've obviously covered, and Florian introduced the topic. I think we've introduced ourselves, so I think we can move past this slide. Today's agenda. So, realistically, SharePoint's a great collaboration platform. So I'll be going into all the good stuff that SharePoint brings to Microsoft 365. But there are some challenges. We see this on a regular basis. I've been working with SharePoint since around 2001, the first instance of SharePoint portal server, SPS as it was known at the time. So I've got a lot of experience from both consulting in-house and now obviously from a product perspective. So I just want to give you some of my thoughts about what challenges I've seen with standard SharePoint. And then how does WorkPoint address some of these challenges? So as I say, SharePoint is a great platform for collaboration. WorkPoint is built on SharePoint and has been since day one. We rely heavily on SharePoint underlying functionality to bring you all the WorkPoint goodness. So what does SharePoint bring to the party? Well, it's got all the structural components you need for most solutions, especially when you're thinking about content management. So it's got lists, libraries, pages, those sort of things. It's got excellent document management functionality, for instance, versioning, being able to put metadata on content, the file management features you would expect from a document management solution. It has a huge file type support. I think it's over 200 file types now are supported in SharePoint. So any sort of content that you want to store in SharePoint is supported. Search is really powerful. It's gone through an evolution. It's got better and better over time, and now it's got a lot of intelligence. So it actually knows about content trending around you, what are people doing within your organization, within your peer group. So it's really got that intelligent search now with the sort of artificial intelligence behind it. I don't think we can underestimate the importance of the integration with the Microsoft Office tool suite, so Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. You natively can work very closely with content, things like being able to co-author. And then, if you do want to do some automation, you've got the flexibility of the Power Automate platform, not strictly part of SharePoint, but more and more is becoming more tightly integrated. The cloud scale, I don't think there's many other content management systems out there that can scale as well as Microsoft and SharePoint. And then one of the biggest things is if you've already bought Microsoft 365 or an Office 365 subscription, you get SharePoint as part of that package. So it's really being able to leverage your investment. So those are some of the key benefits that I see of SharePoint. But in my experience, some SharePoint projects do fail, unfortunately. And these are sort of some of the typical topics I see. So, you know, moving from a traditional ECM systems, which have been built for industry verticals, so construction, pharmaceuticals, legal, energy, you know, there's an expectation that SharePoint has all the bells and whistles that some of these vertical solutions would have. And therefore, you know, if the due diligence isn't done in advance, there can be a negative impact. One of the things, and we'll go into it, is that WorkPoint bridges a lot of those gaps. Sometimes you see people just considering SharePoint as a replacement for file systems. You know, that's just a recipe for disaster, because you don't actually leverage any of the power of the SharePoint platform, and it just becomes another content repository in another system. I've also seen and being guilty of probably customizing the hell out of SharePoint, and that means it's hard to manage, hard to maintain. Microsoft make changes, things break. You know, it just isn't a good route to go. And some SIs, system integrators, will have toolbox type solutions or little components, but again, they need to be managed, they need to be updated to follow with the cloud and Microsoft 365 changes. SharePoint's been around a while, so you do have users that have come from different organizations or different experiences with SharePoint, and you know, some people have had bad experiences in the past. It's a very different platform today, but you know, people have the opinion that it's hard to find things, adding content is difficult, it's not a great user experience, it's difficult to use. So those sort of things. You also have the likes of the CIO, who might not be confident that his content that he's responsible for from an organization is secure. There may be perceptions out there that SharePoint isn't really designed for enterprise document management, and that might be links back to the first point, where you know, some of these other solutions might have features and functionalities that SharePoint natively doesn't have. And then obviously lack of control and governance. Microsoft will promote SharePoint, and rightly do, but you know, they say you can do anything, you can go and create as many sites, you know, but the fact is you end up with a hard to maintain solution. So where does WorkPoint come in? WorkPoint bridges the gaps in SharePoint to ensure you have the secure environment, it's compliant and it's well governed, and more importantly, easy to use. So this is one of our typical sort of messaging slides, where we kind of build SharePoint in a totally new way. So on the left hand side, you have SharePoint standard solution, where you've got all the building blocks, but it's difficult to use, difficult to manage. You know, people don't really realize the benefit. The middle one is where you build custom solutions, you know, point solutions, which are time consuming to implement, costly. They have risky outcomes in the fact that, you know, how do you support and maintain, and they require a specialist knowledge, specialist development skills. And we see WorkPoint as being the house, the full building. So we kind of make it easy to implement, and you can calculate in advance how much is it going to cost you and how long is it going to take to implement. It's fully integrated with Office 365, it's scalable, and we have a modular approach to it. So the desired outcome is, you know, you can estimate your cost, or your total cost of ownership of the platform. And then I put in the bottom right hand corner, you know, the real value from WorkPoint is the ability to govern, drive adoption, and enable the platform and enable the services of Microsoft 365. So I've broken this presentation out into three kind of distinct areas that I think are the most important, and where we see that we focus on bridging the gaps in SharePoint. So from a structural governance, what are the challenges? You know, we've had SharePoint site sprawl for a long time, and it causes a type of anarchy within. So it's important not to fall foul of anarchy. So, you know, Microsoft will say empower the users, give it flexibility, but unfortunately that causes chaos, and you get that site sprawl. But then you can go the converse way, where the administrator controls everything, but that doesn't give the business agility that's required. In SharePoint, natively, the world's quite flat, or at least partially flat nowadays. So they have sites which are all at the same level. They have hub sites, and now they have child hub sites. But what they don't really do is provide that hierarchy, and people like to work in hierarchies. They need to understand the structures. And navigating workspaces can be challenging. There's no relationship between workspaces. And there's a lot of these things around metadata as well. You know, the requirement of site owners to have to customize and configure the system every time. And if you don't have that consistency, if you don't have that structure, you're going to have problems with your SharePoint solution, and it's going to be expensive to manage and maintain, and it's also going to be difficult for the users to use. So this is kind of how Microsoft see the world. They see, you know, they have sites, they have like HR, EMEA, and sales as kind of the hubs, and then they have sites that sit around those. So for HR, you've got benefits, new hires, reward recognition, and you can move these things about, and it's great that you can do that. The way we see this is more of an intuitive structure. So you have business modules. So you have a company business module that has you know, contacts, emails, documents related to the company, events, notes, those sort of things. And then related to that, you can have things like a contact or a project. And within a project, you can also have things like emails and documents and tasks related to that project. And then even further down, and it's easier to show, you have things like transmittals, where you can actually send documents securely to third parties. So this is a sample of a modular approach that we take in WorkPoint to structuring your SharePoint. And I think the best way to do it is through demos. So we'll get to the demo in a minute, but I just wanted to give you the idea that WorkPoint works in these modules, and modules, you have sites within modules, and those modules can relate to each other. So you have implicit structural governance with WorkPoint. So we can control who can create workspaces. So, you know, you might only want a subset, or you might only want people to be able to create projects, but not cases or contacts. So you can really control who can do what within the system. You can create multiple business modules in a hierarchy, and I think I showed that on the previous slide, and how they relate to each other. We really focus on making it easy to navigate and easy to find those workspaces, either through our navigation or through the directories that we have. You can build dashboards as well to provide intuitive user interface. And obviously, we want to make sure SharePoint provides a number of templates by default, but we want you to be able to create your own templates and not have to think about developing and coding those templates, or creating site templates, which actually require a real level of technical knowledge. And what happens to your workspaces at the end of their life cycle? You need to be able to archive them, because not every project, not every case, not every site should last forever. And you need to be cognizant about what do you do with that data. I think the best way is to show a demo. So I'm just going to show a project management demo. So this is WorkPoint. Hopefully it looks familiar, and it looks like SharePoint. As I say, we're built on the SharePoint. platform. From a dashboard perspective, I can see the number of projects, I can see the number of projects by the different PMs and their stages, etc. I can see the tasks that might be assigned to me. I can see the projects that are related to me. I can see all the different companies, and I can see recent documents trending within this solution. But coming into that's all by kind of standard SharePoint, you can hopefully look and feel. But what I've got here is I've got the WorkPoint top panel. And here you can see the same structure that I had on the previous slide. So I've got my companies, I've got my contacts, I've got my projects, and I've got my transmittals. So if I want to see, and I can go in here and I can see, okay, well, just show my projects, for instance. And these are the projects where I'm the project manager. Or I can say, go and show me all projects. And this is the full portfolio view. And you can see that what we do is we put a lot of metadata around these projects. So you're no longer, SharePoint isn't great about putting metadata on sites. You only get a title or description, whereas we really kind of enhance that by putting metadata around a project, for instance. So here I can see, you know, the completion date and the deadline has been overdue, the budget, I can see who's the project manager, I can see who's in the team, all this rich metadata. So related to each project, there's a site, so I can go in and I can go into this project site. I have a very nice layout of my project, but the most important thing here is I have a standard structure to my project. So I can come in here, I always have the documents, I always have a risk matrix, I have tasks down here, I have upcoming appointments, I can see who the project team is, and I can see what relations are there. I can also see who's this project, so who's the customer of this project. And if I wanted to go to another project, go to this carbon bearing project, I can again have exactly the same structure. So the navigation is exactly the same. I can go into my project status, I can go into my documents, etc. So as a user, no matter what project I'm going to, I get that consistency of look and feel, and we ensure that that's always up to date. So if you make a change to your template, we update that across all projects, which is a huge benefit, because businesses aren't static, projects change, organizational processes change, so you need to be able to adapt to those. And if I come here, I can also start seeing the structure of my project within this top panel. So I can see that it's some information about the project. I can see that the status is green. I can see what if content has been changed in it. I can see what stage it's at. I can change the stage, etc. So we really provide that structure and governance and control over this. So when I need a new project, I can come back to my WorkPoint homepage. I can click, I want a new project, and we can control, as I say, the permissions on that, but I can be assured that the project will be created exactly as all other projects are created within the solution. Okay, so that's the quick introduction and demo to the structural governance that we provide. So our provisioning and our site templating is really critical, but it's not just about site templating and provisioning. It's about capturing the right level of information at the right for a project in this case, but also making sure that if I wanted to change this homepage, or I wanted to change the navigation, or I wanted to add an additional field or a bit of metadata to a document, I can do that, and I can push that from our central templating system out to all projects. We also have rule-based provisioning as well. So maybe I have different types of projects as well. So not all projects are the same. You may have different methodologies. You may have different sizes of projects. So you can actually say, well, for this project of a small project, for instance, I don't need a risk, or I don't need a status report. But for a large project, I need all of these, so we can control when things are created as well. So based on the size of the properties of a project, but also maybe around the stage of a project, because maybe when I go into planning, I need all the planning information, maybe the project plan, the status and the change log need to come into play at that stage. Brilliant. So the second facet I wanted to talk about was security. Security is so important in any content management system, and SharePoint security, whilst great, is quite complex. It's very granular, and that's probably the challenge most organizations face. So, you know, you can't really underestimate the effort it is to manage the security. So, you know, I've worked with administrators in the past, and that's one of their biggest headaches, is actually, you know, being asked to give permissions, or training users how to give permissions, or, you know, changing a user moves on or changes role, and how do I give that permission to the user? So, you know, with standard SharePoint, the workspace owner is typically responsible, but that requires a lot of knowledge and a lot of training, and can be also done wrong if not managed correctly. As I say, it's hard for the administrators to manage. There's no real centralized way of managing that from a SharePoint perspective. You know, do you trust users to do it correctly? So if you're sharing externally, do you trust them to share it externally, and are they sharing it correctly? How do you scale? You know, SharePoint does have some limits, so how do you scale those? What happens when you reach the 5,000 unique permission limits? Are you confident that your data protection policies are being enforced? And, you know, do you want to grant, or how do you reassign permissions, and what happens if you're audited as well? Who did what when in your system? So WorkPoint solves these by a very advanced rule-based security engine. So we have the concept of dynamic rules, and I'll show you those. Or you can have inherited rules. So, you know, if you had a project and you had transmittals and you wanted the transmittal to have the same permissions, you can actually inherit down the same permissions down the hierarchy. You know, they're conditional, so you can actually say, well, based on, you know, maybe project size or the budget or something like that, set the permissions slightly differently. It's very granular, so we can actually say, okay, well, set the permissions on the entities, so who can actually see the list of projects, who can see maybe projects within a region. So you might have a global organizations with business functions in, say, you know, EMEA and the Americas, and maybe you only want the EMEA people to see the EMEA projects and the America users to see the Americans projects. You know, we can do it down to the workspace, so the site level. So, you know, who can do what within the site. Likewise with the lists, and I'll show a demo of that, lists of libraries, and even down to items now. Obviously, you know, you have to be very cognizant when you're doing it down to the item level, but maybe there's certain circumstances that you might have secure content that you really want to restrict access to. We support the SharePoint Office 365 groups and SharePoint groups. We support the sharing settings for external sharing and collaboration, and we also support permission levels, including custom permission levels. So, you know, there's what I think 6 or 7 permission levels, but there's probably different permission sets within those as well. So we support those. We also support partitioning for security at scale. So again, this is to address that 5,000 list item issue. So if you have more than 5,000 projects and your projects are quite individually secured, how do you manage that? It's a difficult thing, but we have a solution around partitioning, so you can actually scale to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of projects from a security perspective. And then we also have a full auditing capability, so you can actually track on a document level or a library level who's done what. So has someone downloaded a file or opened a file, or, you know, shared a file, or who's viewed a file, etc. So we capture all this audit information, so you actually know who did what when. So you could actually come back from an audit perspective and look for maybe a specific file or for a specific site or library. So I just wanted to show a little bit of the security side of things. So if I can hopefully bring up the light. So I have a lot of windows here. So I'm going to start with a little bit of technical, but this is our admin interface. So what I can do here is I can set the security for my project's module. So I can basically build some rules. So I've built a rule down here, or 5 rules, should I say, for the lists, and the lists are you know, external documents, private documents, and external documents. So 3 different libraries: private, documents, and external. So I can set rules, so I can actually say, okay, well, project managers are the only ones that can actually access private, whereas the project team can access documents and external. And the external users can only access the external document library, but not the private or the documents. So I can really set up granular rules, and I can come in here and say, maybe add a new rule. And I can say, well, it's a dynamic rule because I want it to be dynamic and I want to base it off information about the project. And I can come down here and I can maybe say, okay, well, actually, in this case, it's a wizard. And I'll show you a wizard in a minute, but we can control what wizards can be run by different people, or maybe it's the list. And I can say, okay, well, maybe it's the project manager, and I want to give project manager access to tasks, and I can give them full control. So this is the permission level. So you can really kind of define your rules really generically. And as I say, we can have activation conditions. So do you want it always to activate that rule, or do you want it to, based on certain conditions, activate the rule? So let's see how that actually works from an end user perspective. So if I'm here, if I go down to my projects, and I'll go into Jabber Speak here, I can, as an administrator, I can see all the documents, private and external, as I kind of showed you in the rules setup. If I come in here, so before I go in there, I can come here and I can see that, can I see? No, I can't see because I haven't got the team here. I can see that the project manager is Megan. So in my rule, I set it up so the project manager can see the private library. So if we bring up a different browser, I'm now in as Megan here. So I can see both private, external, and the standard document library. So Megan has access to that. But if I go back to, well, I can show it here actually, project team, I can see that Lee Gu is part of the project team. So if I go, but not the project manager. So if I go in as Lee, and hopefully I'm logged in as Lee here. Yep, Lee. So if I see here, he doesn't have access to that private area. So that kind of gives you an idea of the flexibility that you have from a security perspective. The final part was that I wanted to kind of say how WorkPoint kind of bridges the gaps in some of the SharePoint functionalities, the content management side. So some of the challenges, so, you know, we need to provide structure on unstructured data. Documents are unstructured just by their nature. And when I say content management, it isn't just documents. It can be tasks. It can be any. It could be status reports. It could be you know, events. Any of these, or notes. It can be any of these assets, and that's why I called it content management rather than document management. So there's this fine balance when you're putting content in to SharePoint of you want to capture as much information as possible, but you also want the users to be able to use the system. And quite often, you know, the users find it too hard to put information, document or something into the system because they're being prompted for so much information. So they find it hard, and why can't the system do it for me? Is often the statement that you get from users. If you've used SharePoint document numbering, or you come from another document management system, SharePoint document numbering is quite basic, to be honest. And a lot of organizations have standards around document numbering. So we have SharePoint document numbering doesn't meet a lot of business requirements, and therefore you kind of tend to find people are either not using document numbering, which is so important, or that they're kind of doing it manually, or they're keeping a document register somewhere to manage that. Also, again, relating to the structural part, but people knowing where to put content, having standard folder structures. If you, every time in SharePoint, if you created a new site using standard SharePoint, you have to go and set up your folder structure every time. You have to go and set up maybe your task list every time. You maybe have to go and set up your standard set of tasks every time. So, SharePoint, there's a lot of overhead in doing that, and a lot of potential for errors. And people not knowing, if you had a different folder structure between different projects, you don't know where to put things. Also, how your templates managed. If you're using content types where you're within SharePoint, you're limited to one document template per content type. So you see a lot of organizations then creating lots of content types, which puts an overhead on managing, and it also makes it unusable from an end user perspective. And do you need your system to be more intelligent about when you're creating content or when you're updating content? So how do we solve these challenges? And so I'm not going to go through all of these because I think I can show them, but we do it through standardization, ensuring data quality, compliance, efficiency, adoption, and flexibility. So, we standardize on metadata. We have a batch processing capability. So, if you want to don't work on an individual document, work on a batch of documents. We can also create PDFs really easily and, merge those PDFs into standard formats. As I said, the document numbering, we have a great solution around that, standard folder structures, etc., and smart templates. So I think the best way, again, is to show this functionality. So drive into demo time, and apologies for me jumping through a number of solutions, but it's different things are set up in different ways. So if I come back here and I go to my projects, I can easily navigate to my carbon bearing project. And if I go into maybe my documents here, what I can see straight away is I have a standard folder structure. I've also got standard metadata as well. So I've got a document ID. In this case, it's got a format where it prefixes it with doc, it's the year, and then a unique ID afterwards. But I can also see that it's got things like project status, reviewer, document status, etc. So I've got a standard set of metadata, and the user doesn't have to worry about setting this up. The system does it for them. But you can also see that in this case, my project status is actually being tagged onto the document when the document is being created. So I can see here that the project status is green, and that's being inherited down. So you can actually inherit information down from a project overall onto the document. So again, it's removing that need for someone to enter information. The project status is automatically tagged. Maybe the project manager can automatically be tagged. Maybe the the project end date. All of these things, or the project ID, can be tagged automatically, so the users don't have to worry about tagging it. It's done from the context of where the user's working. So that's standardized metadata, but also when I go and create a document, I can show you creating a document. I might want to go and create a document, and in this case, I'll just call it webinar 1. I can choose where I want to save it. But again, apologies.
Every time we have Dom, somebody he get a package or something like this. So I'm sorry, and he is also, but I think that's totally human when we work from home in the Corona time. So Dom, absolutely no problem. I jumped in with my Christmas hat, so everybody has to laugh, and now you can go on.
So thank you, Florian, and typical Amazon delivery. So that time of
no problem.
Brilliant. So I was showing creating a document, and as I said, content types are very limited and template management is very limited in SharePoint. So if I want to create a document from a template, I can use our template creation capability. So in this case, I want to create a project description. I can see the preview. I could go and say save and edit online. So I've selected a template. So this means that the users are using a standardized set of document templates, but what we also have is this ability to insert information from the project directly into the document, so the users aren't having to do that. So again, another level of governance that comes with WorkPoint. So here, the project manager, the status is green, the project start date and project completion date, etc. So I created a document through our content management. So, again, it's really easy for users to go and create content with the right document templates. Please watch our webinar on document templates or templating, because I go into a lot more around that. But sometimes you're not only going to create one document, you might want to go and create a set of documents at the same time. So here I can go in and I can actually go and create a set of documents. So under here, I've got different document groups, and I can come in here, maybe details, and I want these, just the first two documents to be included. I can go and finalize that. And I can choose whether I want to create them as a SharePoint document set, if you're familiar with those, individual files, or merged into one. So you get that ability to have multiple documents creating a single document. So in this case, I'm just going to create multiple files, or sorry, individual files, and I can click save and go. And what that will do, will also do that merging of information. So if I've set up my template to pull information about the project, or even about the customer or the company above, we can do that. So the final thing I wanted to show in this part is to show that I can perform actions on a document. So with standard SharePoint, you can do things like download and maybe rename, and you can maybe send to a Power App or a Power Automate. But we have our send to functionality. So if I click here and I do send to, I've got all these actions I can run. So I can send the document to a transmittal, or maybe I want to copy it to another project, maybe combine into a PDF or zip it, etc. And these are all very configurable, and these have been set up. But working on one document isn't necessarily what you want to do. You might want to work on actually multiple documents. So I can select these 3 documents and I can do send to. You'll notice the set of actions are slightly different because these are actions set up for multiple files. Maybe I want to combine these into a PDF. So what I'm actually going to be able to do here is actually say, okay, well, these 3 documents put into a PDF, and I can even select what format of PDF. And we support a lot of formats here. So I can maybe say, well, PDF 1A, and I can give it a name, PDF 21 December. I can select what order of the files. Maybe I want this one first. I can also say, do I want an index page, and do I want page numbers? And if there's an existing file, do I want to override it? And I can also include the source information. So I'll just deselect those for now, and I can do save. Very conscious of time, so I will let that run while I show you the 2 other things that I wanted to show from this perspective. So if I now also show templates, don't have to just be documents, and thinking about structure, I might want a set of tasks to be created. So here, if I go into in this case, I'm in a case management solution, and I'm in a case, I might want to say, okay, well, I've got my tasks and I want to go and create a set of tasks at the same time. So this is not possible within kind of standard SharePoint. You'd have to go and add the tasks individually. So I can do create tasks and I get a whole list of tasks. Maybe I want all the tasks, or maybe I just want a subset of tasks, so maybe evaluation tasks. I can say, okay, well, I'll have all of those tasks, finalize, and I can save that. And within a couple of seconds, I've now got a standard set of tasks being created. I don't have to create them manually through a button. I can do it through our processes as well. So I can actually see now that these tasks have been created. I can see that they've been automatically assigned to Jesper, and I can also see that their due dates have all automatically been set by the system when being created. I can also do smart things like, you might not, in this case, it's a case management. And in accountancy, you might want to roll over a case to 2022. How would you do that in SharePoint? It's really difficult. You might have to copy or use a migration tool or something like that. But in this case, I can just do copy case, and I can go and select what do I want to copy, and maybe I want to reset the content, or do I want to bring content in from the previous year. So I've got all these capabilities to kind of copy functionality. And the final thing I wanted to show was if I go to a financial statement, and in this case, I'm going to go to financial statement 2021 in here. I kind of mentioned earlier that SharePoint, doesn't really have that templating capability, or, you might have it, but every site gets exactly the same, but maybe I want a set of folders created. So here I've got a blank financial statement, but I want to make sure that all of the folder and the folder structure is exactly the same. So I've got a create folders button here. I can say, what folders do I want? Okay, well, I've only got a set of 3. I'll select all of those, and I can click that and click save. And within a couple of seconds, I'll have my folders created. And that's not just folders at the root level. You can have a hierarchy of folders. And the final thing I wanted to show was, apologies, email management. So, documents, emails are a form of document. So in this case, I've got some emails here. I want to be able to manage those that content. So, here I have a company, and I want to save them into my emails area. Within WorkPoint, I can just drag and drop that into Quaxo. It's easy as that. Maybe I have an attachment. I have an attachment here. I've got test 1, 2, 3. I can put that in and really drag and drop type functionality. So if I come back to find the right browser, I think it's this one in Quaxo, and I do a refresh, I would hope that I now have my 2 documents. So really providing that rich document management functionality or content management, but from an email management perspective. So I'm very conscious that we're almost at time, so I just close out the session talking about the adoption. Sure, you can see my slides. So 30-second, so the challenges around adoption that we address is, humans hate change. It's in our nature. So I think people underestimate the resistance to change, underestimate the change management that's needed for a successful project. And also SharePoint is complex. It has a lot of levers and knobs. And if you're not familiar with those, then it can actually, so how do I get permissions? How do I customize a page? What is a content type? What is a field? And what we do from a WorkPoint perspective is we take all that complexity away and we make it easy. So the users don't need to think about it. The users only need to think about what they need to do rather than setting things up and worrying about how do I secure something. So, users don't need to think about the security. The system just does it. All the workplaces are standardized based on, rules or standard templates. You don't need a sat nav to navigate. It's really intuitive for the users. And content's only 1 click away. So, We do leverage the power of SharePoint, but we make it more intuitive, and therefore, if it's easier for the users and the users don't need to think about all the complexities of SharePoint, then it helps drive adoption of the platform. I'll move through this very quickly. So it's got a bit of animation, but what this is also showing is WorkPoint isn't just SharePoint. It brings all these tools together as well from a Microsoft Office 365 suite. So, you know, while today we've been talking about SharePoint, it's about bringing all those tools together to make a good solution, you know. And one of the challenges you always have is what to use when. You know, there's so many tools for doing different things, and by using WorkPoint, you can really guide the user to knowing, okay, well, if I'm creating a task, if I'm creating a risk, I don't need to think about where I'm storing that. I just need to know that I need to store a task or a risk. I don't need to know that it's a SharePoint list or a to-do or a planner or something like that. So apology, Florian, I have used up more than my time, but
that's no problem.
If you have any questions.
That's no problem. I will put me first in because this was my surprise. You know, I wanted to surprise the people with my Christmas hat, but the Amazon guy kicked me out. But it's no problem. So first, I think we have a question. Definitely, I have the first question to because it's interesting for me. How many Amazon packages do you get around in a week, so that we know right now that when we should make the webinars? But we just let this question away.
It's only when webinars occur that I get.
So that's no problem. But we have one question as well. I will read it directly, and you can answer it. Is it possible to register use time and material on projects in your system?
We don't do time registration. We're more around the content rather than resource management.
Okay. I think that's a great answer. I will go with another topic a little bit. Wait until the people maybe also put in.
What I'll say just on that, well, the other questions, or you're seeing about other questions, is what we do is integrate with those resource management tools as well. So a lot of resource management tools are great about managing resources, but they're not great about managing content. So what we see is a lot of our customers and partners have maybe a PMS or CRM type solution where they manage the resources, and they use WorkPoint as their repository.
Okay, perfect. So I will skip a little bit. We'll jump into what is going on in WorkPoint. Wait until this. The attendees have more time to put in some questions if there are questions. So just for your information, that if you want to get more information about WorkPoint, I highly recommend the YouTube channel WorkPoint 365 Explore. There you have also a lot of information and also interviews with Dom, for example, or our technical manager, product manager, Alan Yuka-Peterson, about products. But also we have inside views a little bit with Daniel Haslund, where we have a freelancer who's worked with Carrarian together. So it's very interesting. Also, we have tips and tricks on the channel. So visit our channel and enjoy the videos, and maybe you'll find something what is useful for you. Like I said, this was our last webinar in this year, but we are preparing a lot of interesting topics and also a lot of interesting guests for the next year. So stay up to date. And I hope we will see us again in the next year, of course. So, Dom, we have no questions right now. So, like every time with you, it's a perfect presentation. The people don't have questions. But if you want to get in contact with us, of course, on our webpage, you can find information, and also you can contact us directly via email or what else. We are very open to show demos to help you and everything else. So I think that's it for today. The only thing I can say is from my side, you can see I'm totally in a Christmas mood. So I hope everybody of you have a Merry Christmas. Enjoy the time with your family. Stay healthy, of course. That's very important in this time, in this very hard time for everybody in the world. And Happy New Year. and we see us in the next year. Dom, as well, you will be also in webinars, and we have to prepare better that the Amazon packaging is not coming in the webinar.
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. Then thank you very much, Dom, and everybody, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Great, thank you.
Bye.